I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be doing a demonstration on painting grass. Now, a couple of things to start off with. There are so many different types of grass you could do, and you want to look at that very similar to how you would paint animal fur. You want to have a reference photo if you're doing short grass or tall grass or how the lighting's hitting the grass, all that stuff. Get a reference photo or open your window and look outside and see how the grass looks there, depending on where you live. But look at something you want to reference so that you can get an idea of the movement of the grass and where the lights and the darks fall and all of that fun stuff. But it is very, very similar to painting fur and animals. For today's demonstration, I painted this using acrylic paint, my Liquitex Basics. I painted this on a Fredrix watercolor canvas. I love those because they're super, super smooth. And I painted fairly long grass. It's crazy simple. It's about as basic as you can go on grass. You can add as much detail or as little detail as you want when you paint yours. But again, find a reference photo. There are as many types of grass as there are different types of animal fur and different textures. Like, you're not going to do the same type of texture you would do on a lion mane as you would on a tiger. There's just tons of texture. Get reference photos. So for this one, I used a couple of main brushes. One was a flat brush, a very small flat synthetic brush, and the other one was a liner brush. I guess technically this is a tutorial on painting a whole forest because I didn't want to stop with just grass. If you're new here, I have video critiques every Tuesday where I'm critiquing your original paintings or drawings, my own speed paintings, drawings, and tutorials every Wednesday, and vlogs most weekends. So make sure you subscribe and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, all those social media sites. Links are below in the video description to keep up with news, my newest work, and to see real-time clips of whatever it is I am currently working on. Now we can move on to the tutorial. I'm starting with a filbert brush and very loosely blocking in the background for my forest. I am painting the area where the grass will be very dark so that my lighter strokes will really show up. This helps to create more depth in the grass so that it doesn't look flat. Using the same brush, I add a bit of texture where the trees in the distance will be. This is all being done wet into wet. I use brown with a bit of black and quite a bit of water for my trees. I want them to be fairly translucent so that they'll appear to be off in the distance. For the trees that are up closer, I use less water, allowing them to be more opaque. I used a slightly smaller brush to paint in my tree branches. They look quite harsh right now, but when I paint in the leaves and rays of light, most of them will be covered. A stiff brown brush to block in some of the leaves in the trees. Again, I'm going much darker and much more harsh than I want my end result to be. If I don't go dark enough now, when I come back through and paint in the rays of light, you wouldn't be able to see the leaves at all. I'm using an airbrush with white paint to push back those trees and leaves, and to add rays of light. If you don't have an airbrush, you can get a similar look by using a transparent mixing white. Liquitex makes one that I like pretty well. It won't be exactly the same, but it'll be about as close as you can get. Now I'm blocking in my foreground trees, using less water this time so that they're more opaque. Having the trees vary in both width and in how strong their color is helps to create depth and atmosphere in the painting. Onto the grass, I'm using a small flat synthetic brush to block in my general shapes and clumps of grass. This is not the color I will end up with, but just sort of a placeholder. You do not want to cover all of the dark black-green color that we had used as a base. Make sure to let some of that show through. Watch that your grass isn't all the same length or going in the exact same direction. Variation is extremely important in achieving a natural look. I continue to build up my general clumps of grass with this same color. Notice how much of the darker black-green that I allowed to show through, creating a look of separate waves in the grass. As I get farther back into the forest, my brush strokes are much shorter. They're less defined and closer together to make the grass appear farther away. I added more of the black-green color over portions of my grass to separate some of the clumps. I've come back through with the airbrush to better define some of my rays of light over the grass. Now I continue working the grass itself. I'm using the same flat brush to create these brush strokes. You can go through with much more detail in your grass depending on the look that you're going for. Just remember to keep the majority of your detail up towards the front of the painting. Now that my general clumps are painted in, I'm going back through with a liner brush and unbleached titanium white to add in the highlights on the upper section of each section of grass. This is not the color that I'm going to end up with. I'll glaze over it with a darker color once I block in my general highlights. Just like before, variation is important. Don't paint all of the highlights the same height or the same direction. Just like when I paint animal fur, I first get everything blocked in. I then go back and rework every area to get better definition and contrast. It's just layer on top of layer on top of layer. Once that is blocked in and dried, I go back in and glaze a bright yellow over the entire grass area. I'm using the same filbert brush that I started the painting with. For my glaze, I'm using a fair amount of water and a small amount of yellow paint. You don't want so much water though that your paint runs. If you're working in oils, you're going to be using mixing medium with your small amount of paint for your glaze. I then glazed a green on the bottom area of the grass to start creating a bit of a glow. I now come back through with the liner brush to add some of the dark black and green portions back into the grass. I'm now using an unbleached titanium white with the liner brush to add some of the little wispy ends to the grass. This little bit of detail helps make the grass look almost sparkly. Obviously, you're not going to want to do this step for all types of grass. I've also started to use this same color to pull highlighted areas down so that I don't have a straight line between the yellow and the green. I want to make sure that that transition from the yellow to the green staggers. I add the little wispy tops to the grass farther back, very sparingly. Too much detail in the background won't look right. I continue working on the detail in the grass before I go back up to finish the detail in the trees. I add in the darker branches on the trees in the foreground and some entering the scene from the left-hand side. When painting branches, it's best to keep a very loose, shaky hand. You don't want them perfectly straight because that looks very unnatural. I use the same stiff round brush from earlier to dab in the leaves on the closer branches. I start with a dark black green and then add lighter shades of green over that, letting the paint dry in between each layer. I like to use at least 3 layers of various shades of green when painting leaves like this. And that's it for today's simple grass tutorial. I hope this helped you guys out, and thank you so much for watching. Yay, we painted a forest! Thanks for watching, guys. If you like these videos, please remember to let me know in the comments below and even give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. I'll see you guys this weekend for the vlog. I don't even know what I'm talking about this weekend yet. It's gonna be a surprise. Bye!